Hi guys, so one of my good, great, amazing friends asked me to do a tutorial on particles. So I'm going to show y'all how to make like your own unique particles along with just like the basic simple ambient particles that a lot of people do. So let's just get straight into it. There's a couple things that you're going to need to know when it comes to particles, like how to make stuff glow, how to make stuff move and stuff like that. So we're going to go over all of that in this video. And at the end of it, I really want you guys to be able to make your own particles that look unique instead of just like replicating what I have. I'll also link the PF for both of the particles that I'm going to make, so if y'all do want to take those, you guys can take them gladly. For starters, we're going to put particular on your thing, and I'm just going to go over a couple of the major settings that you're going to want. So you're going to click on the designer tab right here, and it's going to open up this. So emitter type is how your particles are going to emit. If you have it on point, they move with like your thing, and you can control it with a null. The main primary one that a lot of people use is box. It's like a box itself. And so on and so forth. You can go over them and just like check out all the particles types. The next tab is your motion. This is basically how fast your particles move, where your particles move, and so on and so forth. Then you have your particle type. This is where you can choose like what your particle looks like and stuff like that. There's texture polygons and stuff like that in order to change what the particle looks like. There's your size and rotation. This is by far probably one of the most important ones. Being able to manipulate the size of your particles so they fit your scene, along with being able to move the rotation of not only just like the y-axis but in a 3D space to make your particles have more texture. Then there's opacity. I don't really worry about this too much, but it's like how you can make your particles come in and out. The color, there's two important things over this. There's the start and over life. We'll go over both of those later in this scene. Then we're going to move over to gravity and physics. This one has like your physics time factor, and physics has like your spin, your movement, which way it's moving, so on and so forth. If you don't have these tabs, it might be because you're on a newer version of After Effects. If that's the case, I think it's also still called physics or like simulation or something like that. So just try to find that exact same tab and you'll be good. So for starters, when you do add particular, I would suggest going down to this rendering tab right here and changing your acceleration from the CPU to GPU. GPU would just make it work a lot faster and not overload your After Effects. Makes it a lot easier. So first we're going to make the ambient particles that everybody makes. I'll put up a reference on the screen or whatever. So in order to make ambient particles, we're going to use a box type emitter, and we're going to just like manipulate it for our environment. I'll show you how to use it based off like your actual scene later, but I'm just going to show you what they would look like for starters. So we're going to have it on continuous as your emitter type. You can try explode and stuff like that, but basically what continuous and explode are different is explode means all the particles are already going to be there, while continuous means they're constantly going to spawn in. From there, we're going to go to your emitter size, and instead of using linked, I like using individual. And from here, you can manipulate how much depth it has and how long and wide it is. So we're going to first increase our Z depth. This is basically going to make the particles come closer and further away. So I usually like having mine around like 3,000 to like 5,000. And then we're going to manipulate our Y and Z, or X and Z, sorry. So our Y is going to be how wide it is, and our Z is going to be how stretched out it is. I like having these around like 2,000, 3,000, but for now this is fine. So now that it's stretched out more, you can see how our particles are moving better, and you can see what kind of motion they have. So now in order to create that like ambient particle kind of vibe, we're going to increase the motion that it has. So you're going to come to this motion tab, and you're going to either change your direction. This is all optional, but I personally like having either uniform or disc enabled as your direction. They just move in two different mannerisms. I think it looks cooler. Then you're going to increase your direction spread slightly. We'll just go on uniform for now, just so like it's like the base one. And now you're going to up your velocity a lot. Ambient particles usually move around a lot more. Around like the 300 to 400 threshold is usually good. And now you can see like our particles are flying around a lot more drastically. You're going to up your velocity random to 100% now in order to get that real like vibe of ambient particles moving around with the wind, because not every particle is going to move at the same speed. And from here, you're going to go to your size and rotation, and you're just going to decrease your size a bit to like 3 or 4 and increase the size random to like 20 to 40. I'll just go middle way like 28. This is just going to change the size of all your particles so that it looks kind of like all over the place. And that's going to give that more like ambient particle kind of vibe. From there, if you turn on the motion blur in this tab, you can actually see like how they're moving now. And you can see like there's some that are just like the normal circles, and there's some that are moving absurdly fast, which gives that more realistic vibe. From here, it's all preference, but you can go into your physics and gravity tab. One thing I would suggest doing is increasing your spin amplitude and spin frequency just a bit. That just makes them move more in like circular manners, which gives that more like windy effect. And that's kind of it for the most part when it comes to like ambient particles. From this tab, you can go out and you'll see that we have like these ambient particles coming in. If you're on my version of particular, you're going to want to come down to your emitter tab right here, go to your emission extras and turn on the pre-run to 100%. That's just going to make sure that all the particles that are supposed to be spawned in are automatically spawned in. From there, we're going to turn on the motion blur outside of the actual designer. Now you can do this by just enabling motion blur here, or you can do it my way, which is going into the rendering tab and enabling motion blur here so that it's not affected by the compositions, and you can actually manipulate the shutter angle yourself. So like for example, if I play it here, you see it has super high shutter angle. If I turn down it to like 120, which is usually what I prefer, it'll have less of that like linear effect. We'll meet in the middle, we'll meet somewhere around like 190. And that's like basically your particles done. I would suggest decreasing the amount a bit. Having like a bunch of particles kind of looks like clumpy and like can fit the scene very awkward. So like something like this is a lot better. And then if you want, you can up the velocity and make them move faster. Not only that, but there's also another method, which is if you go into your physics tab, you can increase your physics time faster, which will make them just move faster. And there's like basically your particles done. Like the ambient ones is the same stuff that I usually use every single time I make particles. Now we're gonna go on to like the cosmetic aspect of particles, which is like coloring and stuff like that. So you can either have like just a normal color that fits with the entire scene. I personally like going something with like a lighter tint because it'll make the glow in post look a lot better. So something like this, say if I want my particles to be bluish. And then now I would come and add deep glow or optical glow in post in order to give that glowy effect. I would up my radius a bit and then just vary your exposure depending on how much you want them to really glow. Again, all preference. I would probably decrease the exposure a little bit or something like that. But say that this color is too uniform for you, you can change the color in your designer, or you can do it in the tab here under particles, and change it from at start to overlife. And that will take it from being just one color to a gradient. Now how you manipulate this gradient, basically there's these little tabs right here that you move around. If you don't want as many tabs, you click it and drag it down and it will disconnect it. So say I only want like 3 colors in this, we'll have like these 3 colors, and now where you move them will basically change the strength of the colors. So now if I move this to the left, there's going to be more of these darker blue colors. If I move it more to the right, there's going to be more of the lighter blue colors. So I don't want this dark blue to be as prevalent, so I'm going to decrease its color for starters, and I'm going to bring this one more to the right. And then I'm going to change this one to be a lighter version, just so I can add that lighter hue. And now if we click apply, we'll have this nice variety of colors going around in the scene, which adds a lot more depth to the scene. I actually like it a lot, and it can just make your scene look a lot more uniform, especially if you have like, let's say, multiple colors in the environment. Your color scheme is more random. Another cool thing that you can use is position inside of this emitter section itself. It's also in the emitter tab here. Basically with this, you can actually manipulate like the level of depth and where the particles are. So like if I want them to be like smaller and further back, I can move down the Z and I can like move them around. But say you want to have like more close-up particles, I can move it even closer, and now these particles are going to be more in my face to give that more like close-up vibe. Like you can see these particles that like fly close to the scene. Now I'm going to show you how to actually make your own custom and unique particles, and what you're going to really want to manipulate the most when you're making these kinds of particles. We're going to add particular again, and we're kind of going to follow the exact same scheme. We're going to go to designer, change this to box or point, whatever you want to do that makes your particles unique. You don't have to follow my exact steps, but something along these lines. A key thing when it comes to making your particles unique is how they move and where they move. So I'm going to up the velocity here, and I'm actually going to make these ones bi-directional. So now these move in 2 different ways. Up the velocity random. And then we're going to go to the next important step when making your own unique particles. It's what your particles look like. So if we come down to texture, polygon, colorize, you can choose a sprite here. You can actually add your own, or you can just use the ones here. And there's so many varieties for you to make your own custom particles that look a specific way. I love using particles that look like triangles or like shapes. There's a bunch of 3D ones that you can use as well. We're gonna stick to the 2D ones for now. We're gonna go with like a basic pentagon. When you look at this, you're gonna be like, well, it kind of just looks like normal particles. That's because the size of it is way too low and there's too many. So basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna come to your size and rotation, and you're gonna up the size a lot till you can actually see what the shape looks like. And then you're gonna come back to your emitter, and you're gonna decrease the amount of particles there actually is. When you're doing bigger particles, you obviously don't want as many because it'll really get up all in your face, and you don't want that, especially as like a viewer. You don't want like a bunch of clumped up stuff in your scene. So now we have these types of particles. They're moving in 2 different directions. They still kind of feel kind of flat. That's because they're all facing the same direction. What you're gonna want to do is come down in this size and rotation tab, and you can see random rotation. Just up this, and it will move it in a 3D plane. You move it however much you want. You can do 100, you can do 70, whatever. I usually go around the 40 mark, and you'll see like now we have like these particles that are like all over the place. Now all you're gonna do in order to give it motion is up your speed of rotate, and now you're gonna see that the particles spin around and stuff like that. I usually go around like 1 or something like that, or something below 1, because you don't want your particles like moving all crazy and stuff like that. So we'll go like around like 0.7, and that gives like that little movement kind of vibe, you feel me? Now these particles already look pretty unique. You'd probably see like a couple people making these, but like this is like your own distinct particle that you're making now. If you were following along, you could have done like a different motion, you could have done a different particle sprite. Like this is all up to you now. Then we can go to like the color. I would do overlife, especially when you're trying to make unique particles. Just having like that overlife kind of makes them look a lot cooler. And you will notice when you do overlife, the particles actually like move and like change colors even though they're like a specific one. Say if you don't want that, you can just go random from gradient and they'll just stay 1. But overlife gives that really unique change in your particles, which just makes it 10 times cooler. I'm gonna make like these purple and reddish kind of vibe particles, just because I feel like it'd be really cool to make. Now we have like these really cool particles that are like changing colors and it looks all cool and stuff. The next important section, physics. The way your particles are moving around. This is all up to you. This is all preference. You can make them go down with your gravity. You can make them go up with your gravity. You can make them come closer to you, come further from you. I'm just going to make them go up in this scenario. And you'll see the bidirectional, what it basically is doing is it's making it move in like 2 different formats, but at the same time, the gravity that you're applying to the scene is still manipulating them, which gives this really unique vibe. Like if you look at these particles, I think these look really cool, especially like the one that like flies across your face right here. All those particles are really cool. Now we're gonna add like, let's move it like a little bit more forward towards us, and we're gonna give it like a slight X, so like it kind of moves like to the right a bit. Then you're gonna come to your spin amplitude, up the spin amplitude a bit, and up the frequency of how much it's spinning. And that's gonna make them like kind of do like a little bit of twirls. You can't really see it that well, but if I up this a bunch, you'll see they're doing like a bunch of twirls, you know? Now you can also manipulate turbulence. I don't really mess with it a lot, but you can use it in order to make like your own cool particles. Again, there's so many options inside of particular that I didn't even go over, like shadowlets or spectral fields, aux. Like there's so many things that you can do with particles. I'm just gonna end with these as my custom particles. I think these look really cool. And when you do use sprites, it's gonna put this pentagon fill thingy. Make sure you don't delete this. That's basically what's indicating what sprite it's using. So yeah, now we have like these really cool particles that are floating up. We're gonna add the slightest amount of motion blur to them by just putting this at like 200. And then another thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the physics tab and up how fast they're moving by like a little bit. And now we have like these really cool particles that are moving in a very weird manner. And as long as like it fits your scene properly, these would be amazing. Like I would probably use these in my actual scene. And now you can just add whatever you want to them. I'll add some deep glow to give that really cool like glowish vibe to it. And now like as you watch them, you can see them changing colors and stuff like that, and they just look really unique. And you can do this with any kind of sprite, movement, size. It's all your choice. One specific tip that I would give, especially when using sprites, is to make sure you up the size of the particles in particular itself. Because say I didn't do that and I just kept it like 4. If I wanted to do it by just like upping this itself, it decreases the quality, and it also decreases the range of like where they're hitting and stuff like that. So always make sure that you're manipulating how they look inside a particular itself instead of using external sources. Alright, so I just added 2 scenes to my environment. One is a Valorant clip, the other one is a anime clip, just so I can show you how to use both of them in these types of scenes. So I have both of them down already with absolutely nothing changed, and there's a couple things that I want to change with this type of stuff. For starters, with this type of particle, I would probably change the color of it, and I think the size and the movement could be changed a little bit, maybe move it more to the left. Since he's looking up, I would want it to go like this way. So yeah, let's start off with that. We'll just go to color over life right here, and I'm thinking more of like a greenish tint because of the fact that there's like this greenish light right here. So we're gonna go with like a darker green, and then we're gonna go like a lighter green here, just to like fit the coloring right here more. And you can see they look pretty good. At least they look better now. I'd probably also increase the amount of velocity they have. The reason being is because velocity and like how the particle is moving and how fast it's moving all relies heavily on your scene. Like for example, if there's like some power up going on or a charge, particles are going to move faster because there's more wind in that scene. Same how in this movement, since he's moving his head up so fast, there's going to be more wind around, so it's going to generate faster moving particles. Another thing I'd probably want to do here is decrease how close they are to this camera. So I'd probably bring them to like around here more, and I'll probably decrease the amount of particles a decent. Now the last thing I would do for these particles to make them look a little bit better is to come and give it a Y and an X movement. So now the particles are gonna like slowly move up as they're also moving in different directions. And now you can see this looks a lot better than what we started with. I probably should have kept a duplicate of what we started with, but just from reference you can tell that it looks a lot better. Another thing that I would suggest when it comes to anime is twixting and doing 3D trackers. I would suggest twixting a clip and then adding the particles. On top of that, I wouldn't suggest doing 3D tracks for anime, because a lot of the time it's a still frame, or like just like a tripod frame where like the camera is still and there's more motion in the scene, which in that case you wouldn't really need to move the particles or the track because you're not tracking any environment. So we're gonna end off with these for this part of particles. I'm not gonna go any more in depth, but you could definitely make these look a lot better. I'm just trying to show y'all how you would manipulate it with a scene. Now let's go over to the Valorant clip. In the Valorant clip, the particles, I don't like how they're moving like this direction. I would want them move more to the left because there's more open space right here. On top of that, there's a couple more things I'll do when it comes to compositing wise in a like Valorant clip. Like for example, I would first decrease the gamma of the scene, just darken it so that the glows from the light itself stick out more. So you can see just by turning down the highlights and the midtones, the particles just stick out more, which is usually what you want with your particles. Another thing I'd suggest, especially with like game edits, is to do 3D tracks, because with game edits the camera is always moving, so you want to follow your environment and track it with the particles. In this case, I'm not really going to do them just because I don't really care that much, and at the same time there's not like a crazy motion happening, so we're just going to keep it how it's looking right now. First thing I'm going to do is just decrease how close they are to the scene. I'm going to move them back a little bit. Next, I'm going to increase the velocity of them a bit, and then I'm also going to move where they're moving. So I'm going to move the Z a little bit forwards again, and I'm going to move the X more to the left. So now, instead of moving this way, they're going to move this way. You can see just that simple change really adds a lot more since it's filling up this side. But just to make it fill even more, I'm going to move these to the left more. I'm going to bring it back a little bit so that they're like kind of smaller and they fit into this more open scene more. Now this kind of motion looks a lot better for the scene. And the last thing I'm going to do is just probably change the color of it. Same thing with overlife. I'm just going to make it, instead of having like the reddish hint, I'm going to just have it like only a bluish hint to match the vibe of the gun. And that will just like fit the scene more. So now we have like 2 different types of particles that fit the scenes that they're supposed to be in a lot better compared to what they were previously. One other thing that's important when making unique particles is layering. You can layer particles inside a particular by making multiple different systems, and I'll show you how to do that really quickly. We're going to use these particles, for example. So when you come into this particle system, right, on this bottom left, you have systems. If you click add a system, it will create a new system, and you can see like it's like doing whatever it's doing inside of the middle. And with this, you can change it into a box and like add whatever you want to do to it. The way that I usually do it is I'll duplicate my master system. I'll come to motion and I'll change the random seed of it, and then I will change like the X value of it so that's stretched out more. And then I'll go to whatever sprite I'm using. I had like an 8-bit one, and now you can see we have like we've layered 2 different types of particles inside of one system instead of making 2. Now you could obviously tweak this a lot more. You can make some smaller, you can make the other ones bigger, you can change the colors of them. There's a bunch of stuff you can do when layering particles, but that's just like the simplest form of explanation I can for layering particles. There's a couple other important tabs inside of Particular itself. There is this top left, which is the presets, which has a bunch of different unique stuff that you can use, like nature, smoke, fire, fluid, stuff like that. Like I use these leaves sometimes. There's also their own dust particles that you can use, which I wouldn't suggest them, they're kind of butt. And then if you go to the top right, there's some presets for systems and motions and particles. And then if you come down to the bottom left, there's systems itself, where you can add more systems and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. Obviously there's a lot more that I could improve with these particles and stuff like that, but I just want to give y'all the idea and the impression to be able to like manipulate the particles to fit your own scene. Not every particle that you make is going to fit the scene properly, and not every particle that you like say use a preset of is going to fit the scene properly. You need to know how to manipulate it to the environment that you're dealt with instead of just doing something random. That's probably all for this video. There was probably a bunch more stuff I could have went over, but I'm just going to let y'all experiment with it yourself, because at the end of the day, whatever particles you make should be unique to you and not just something that somebody else made. I hope this helps you guys learn a lot and be able to make your own particles to fit your own scenes and stuff like that. And I also hope this kind of opens up your guys' mind to experimenting more with this type of stuff. There's a bunch of other things you can do with Particular, like aux particles or changing the emitter and stuff like that. But y'all should just experiment with that. And if y'all want me to go over it, I can in a different video. Thanks for watching, and thank you to Emez for recommending me to make this video. Please like this video if you can, and let me know if this tutorial helped you guys in any way. And please be sure to like tag me, stuff like that, if you guys did use this tutorial. I want to see what kind of particles you guys make with this. And that's all. I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you.